Welcome to another episode of Pull Yourself to Pieces here with Bill and Ray. And Ray, we got in the studio some guests today.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes, we have. We'll introduce our guest who's never been on the show before.
Okay.
He is a former journalist, an advocate for preserving democracy, as we all should be.
Uh-huh.
A writer of the thriller fiction book Paper Story, and more recently, the author of a book called Stop Pretending America, An Outsider's Guide to Healing the Sickness on the Inside in Elections and the Media. Please welcome Philip Gimson.
Hey!
Woo!
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So is he here under duress? Did somebody put a gun to his head? Because nobody does our show. So I just have to know.
I'm not allowed to say. I'm not allowed to speak freely.
I'm wondering what did we promise Philip?
Yeah.
Well, it's nice
lots
to
of
have you.
residuals. Lots of residuals.
Okay, very good. You got it, man.
So we're going to discuss a couple of things with Phil Ray. Obviously, we'll go one by one, and mainly talk about his book and democracy, and there'll be a lot of topics here. And
well, I'm curious.
We have another guest here who's been on the show before. We have Tyler. Hey,
Hello.
Tyler.
Hey!
Hello, I'm back again.
Tyler is our 20-something-year-old here who is related to us.
Well, we should figure out what that something is. It's 8. It's 28 is what it is.
28-year-old who's
hope
here
you
to
know
kind of
that.
give us a perspective on his opinion about things, and
Yes.
he'll be able to kind of bounce off things. And I'll let you, Ray, take over at this point if you want to just start to bring us in.
Yeah, I just want to say something. I'm watching I'm watching our screen here.
Yeah.
And Tyler is the only one that has any movement on our line. You, me, and Philip are flatlined. So I just want to know if you.
No,
guys
I'm seeing all of
I
us.
see that.
So
Yeah,
I think
I
it's just
see-
what you're seeing.
Yeah, I see.
Okay,
audio
You
for
got to
us.
use both eyes, Ray.
I'm using both eyes.
Okay.
They're closed, but I'm using them. Okay.
All right. So where do we start?
Would you consider closed eyes still working?
It could be.
Yes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
what are they working at? What are they doing?
Looking at the inside of my eyelids.
What's the value in that?
Nothing.
They might as well be off.
Yeah.
If you can see the inside of your eyelids, you are a very talented individual.
Yeah.
That is a good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
can.
How do we know our eyes don't shut off when we close our eyes?
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
interesting.
Huh.
Shut off.
You mean like the light in the fridge when you shut the door?
Yeah, exactly. How do you even know
Wow.
it really does that? How do we know?
Wow.
Did you go in there to see?
Speaking of people in the fridge, we'll talk about that story later that I saw today about
We're never going to
the
get
guy
to our topic, are we?
who stuck his landlord in his freezer dismembered. Holy mackerel! That was
Wow.
the top story today.
Well, he didn't want to pay
anyway,
rent. That's one
where
way
did
to get
that
out of
happen?
it. I guess.
It was
Wow.
it was on the internet today. It was on MSN. Some guy in
Jeez.
Chicago has been arrested when police came and found his landlord in his freezer dismembered in pieces.
Wow.
With a rent bill
right.
on him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Here's your bill.
he still had the rent bill.
Jeez.
Still had the bill in his hand for the rent. All right. So let's get down to business here. So, Mr. Phillip, you wrote a book, and so what was your motivation behind this? Did you just need to tell folks what you had been learning, and also I want to know is how long did it take you to do this? Because I'm guessing that it probably took a while to gain all this info and put it all together in book form.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's all yours.
actually, you know what's amazing about the whole experience is I didn't know I was going to write a book. And in late March, I got really ill. I had
sorry to hear that.
a lower GI inflammation. I was hospitalized twice. And it's one thing, like if your appendix gets inflamed, they just remove it. But if your entire lower GI tract gets inflamed, they will not just take out the appendix. They will look to remove other, portions of, like, part of your colon, part of your small intestine.
Right.
And obviously,
Right.
I didn't want that to happen. And fortunately, I had a very conservative surgeon who was like, no, we're going to treat him with antibiotics intravenously. We'll see how he does. And I'm going to wait to remove the appendix. And so that's what happened. I was hospitalized twice, and they waited 6 weeks before they finally removed the appendix because they had to get all the other inflammation under control. I had a sepsis infection, nearly died.
Oh my goodness!
Wow.
And so while I was in the hospital, I had two thoughts. One was about my own mortality, right? Family, people you love. Second was about our democracy. And I spent a lot of nights, I was sleepless anyway. And then I started, thinking about the country, which I've thought a lot about over the past 6 years.
I think we all have.
Yeah. And I finally said, when I get out, I'm going to write a book. And at some point when I was sick, during that span, a thought occurred to me, because I didn't want to just write a book like everybody else on say the same things. And what occurred to me is no one is really pinning the responsibility on individual citizens and then giving those citizens the tools that they need to find out or to demand answers, right? And so right now, the whole problem is you have these demagogues, people like Trump and those that support him, saying that the 2020 election was stolen. Yet in all this time, they've never presented corroborating evidence of widespread voter fraud.
Right.
So
no evidence whatsoever.
Right. So what I do in the book,
today.
exactly, none. So what I do is in the back of the book, I give people template letters and I say, okay, Republican, Independent, Democrat, whatever, you have the ability to send these letters out. It'll take you an hour to print the letters out, sign them. If you want to do snail mail, you want to do email, whatever you want to do. I provide all the addresses. There's a link where you can look up any address for any member of Congress. You can also look up state legislative addresses. But I do concentrate the bulk of the letters on the 7 targeted battleground states in terms of writing state legislators in those states. And I even have Trump's address in there. I have Giuliani. I have Sidney Powell, the crazy lawyer. And, so what I say to citizens is, if you buy into all this, it's your responsibility to demand the corroborating evidence from the people making these charges. And what you're going to get back is not corroborated evidence. You're going to get BS, baloney, spin. And then once that happens, you have to make a decision. Are you willing to continue being manipulated and lied to? Or are you going to say, enough is enough. I've had it. All this time, I've never seen corroborating evidence of widespread voter fraud. I'm sick of being lied to. And I may still be a Republican or whatever party you are, but I'm no longer going to support election deniers because they're liars. They're all liars. Carrie Lake is a liar. The candidates for Secretary of State in Arizona and Nevada, election deniers, they're liars. Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania, he's a liar. So they're all liars. And of course, the biggest liar of all, Trump. So there you have it.
So these letters gave these people a chance to respond with some hard evidence.
Yes.
To you personally.
No, to the writers, the readers of the book, who then
I see.
sign their own name to the letter and then ask for information. Also in the letter to Trump, I have them ask just what is up with his relationship with Putin. Please explain. Please explain why he'll criticize anyone in the United States, even potentially his own wife and kids or whatever. But the one person in the world that Trump will not criticize is Vladimir Putin. So what's up with that?
Right.
So I ask him to come clean. Like, why is it? Why is it you're so afraid to say anything negative about Putin? And when you come right down to it, Putin, right? He's the leader of a poorly run country with a lopsided economy where most people in Russia live hand to mouth. There's just a very small percent of the country that has a decent lifestyle and a very, very small percentage that are rich. mainly oligarchs. Otherwise, life in Russia sucks. And they have virtually no economy once you get away from vodka, gasoline, say military and munitions and things like that. They have no real economy. And Trump acts as if Putin runs a superpower. Russia is not a superpower. China is a superpower. The United States is a superpower.
Well, I think we have seen how much Russia is not a superpower.
Yes.
With how they tried to conquer, what's the name of that country?
Ukraine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ukraine.
Right.
Yeah, they failed miserably, and for everyone to see.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and I'm
so
curious too. Is it Tyler, the young person that is on with us?
Yeah.
I'm curious from your standpoint. What do young people today think when they see Trump constantly currying favor with Vladimir Putin? Do young people sort of say, just what is up with that?
I mean, I can tell you from my experience that it's unsettling. It's at least unsettling, right?
Yeah.
So, and if I may also say, your story about how this book came to be, I think that is a really excellent story for how a book is started. The whole situation, and then the inspiration for you wanting to make the book. I think that's great. I think it's great the fact that you have engagement at the end of the book, and you try and get people to actually, let's make a change, right? Let's ask questions. Let's ask questions, because we're not going to get anywhere if we don't do that. So from my perspective as a young person in this country, I like the idea of engagement. I like that. We're constantly on our phones, we're constantly texting, and I hate to say it, but my generation, if you don't put something right in our face, if you don't put it right there with a big green yes or no button, we're not going to engage with it. And so, call it lazy, maybe it is, but this is the way that the human form has developed into now, and this is what we are. This is what we're going to be in the future. We're going to have shorter attention spans. This is the way we need to engage with people now, is we need to put it right in their face. And you're doing that. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, moving forward, if we want engagement from young people, make it very easy,
Yeah.
So I have a question, this Bill. Phil, the audience then for the book is not necessarily people that didn't buy into any of that. It's only right. It's really just the people that did, or on the fence, right? That did buy into the stolen.
Well,
right?
On the fence, I would say that that would be a great audience. If I get anyone who's sort of having second thoughts about Trump and beginning to wonder, hey, all this stuff that came out from the hearings,
right? I'm
not totally thrilled with some of his actions, right? Some of the people who have some grain of common sense left,
But is there also a statistic on Democrats and some independents who also feel that elections can be, I don't want to use the word stolen, but
yes.
It is, right? And that's that's disturbing.
Yeah, I think in the book I talk about, I forget who ran the poll. It might have been Reuters, but there was 4% of Democrats who thought that Biden's win was somehow or other manufactured, that he had help.
4%. Okay, so still enough, right?
And the craziest thing about this whole election conspiracy thing is, if you watch Fox, and I do tune in from time to time just to hear what they're saying,
right?
But they will not credit Joe Biden for being able to walk down a flight of stairs and chew gum at the same time. and yet no one at Fox has ever said, well, if Biden, if we're not able to credit him for doing anything as sort of a cognizant, a person who is in his right mind, right? How did he pull off the greatest conspiracy of all time? That somehow or other it's been kept a secret. We haven't heard from a single election worker who said, yeah, the Democrats handed me a bag in the middle of the night and they were like, all you have to do is feed these 1,000 documents into this machine and we'll give you $2,000. We haven't heard any of that, right?
Honestly, unfortunately, I feel like people, no matter what the medium is for getting your vote out there, getting your opinion out there, people will always be skeptical that it's being accounted for. There's really no good way, unless we all stand in one big line and one at a time we go, yes, I say this person, and then okay, next. That's never gonna.
Well, we've never had to question it before now.
Right.
Think about
there's
it.
Too
we
many
voted.
people.
We all voted thinking that our vote is safe and it's counted, and there's no hanky panky going on until now.
Yeah, but you know what? In 2020, right? We went out and we voted. It's no secret who probably all four of us voted for. Okay, but before that even happened, right? You had Trump saying that. Oh, it made it. He didn't come say these exact words, but it was like if he doesn't win, then it was going to be illegitimate, right? So before it even get to vote,
he set the stage, Bill, because he knew he was not going to win. He already knew he wasn't going to win, so he set the stage.
If you recall, he set the stage when he first came down the escalator in 2015, because he had even said prior to the election with Clinton, he had said, if I lose to Hillary, you'll know that the election was, stolen and that it's all fraud, that it'll be rigged, right? He had said that even, and he wasn't satisfied just winning the election, because he knew he lost the popular vote.
Right.
At the time, he claimed that there were 5 to 10 million undocumented immigrants, whatever, that voted in the election. There was no truth to that, but that was part of his spin at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's psychology, like I don't want to say like I'll give him that, because if anything, he's just relentless. That's all he is.
He is relentless.
And that's really the only word for it. It's not that he's smart. It's not that he's like savvy. He's just relentless. He doesn't stop, and
he is relentless.
So he rolled with it, and he got people to follow him because he knows that a lot of people, unfortunately, are just that. They're just followers.
Right.
I'd like to get back to just briefly about why Trump doesn't criticize Putin. It's my belief, and I have no proof, but it's my belief that Trump has been laundering money for Putin for decades.
They could easily have a deal. That's the thing,
I think that's what I mean. Think about all the businesses that have gone belly up that Trump helmed, and that's right there. That's the MO of people that launder money. They throw all this money into making the casinos. I mean, the airline, everything that Trump tried to do, every single business, except Trump wine, which has not gone belly up. And you can find that here in Virginia. Nobody drinks it. I mean, that's the perfect way to launder money. You take tons and tons of money and you put it into investing in all these things. And when it goes belly up, it's a write-off. And that money's been cleaned by that point.
Right.
So I think he's been laundering money for Putin for decades.
And, there is a lot of evidence for that. There's a book called House of Trump, House of Putin that I definitely recommend everybody read. It's written by Craig Unger, and it's documented, research, footnoted and everything. And it talks about how Trump's ties to the Russian mafia go all the way back to his early real estate career.
Oh, really?
And then when Trump Tower was built, there were loads of condos or apartments that were sold to Russians, and there was no bank financing involved. They were cash deals.
Coincidence?
And what does that tell you? And then as everyone knows, sometime around 2008, Trump sold his house in Florida at the time. This was the home that he owned prior to Mar-a-Lago. And he sold it for twice the market value in a bad real estate market. And Florida was suffering terribly in 2008. Like their real estate market was totally dead in 2008. And he sold the home that he had just bought within the last couple of years for $40 million. He turned around and sold it for well over $80 million. So he doubled his investment, and he sold it to a Russian oligarch.
Yeah.
Huh.
And you think that Putin just allows those things to happen? We all know in Russia, nothing happens with those oligarchs that that Putin doesn't sign off on.
Oh,
Where if an
yes,
oligarch
yeah.
if an oligarch strays, they risk losing their life. Since the Ukraine war started, and you can look this up, it's a fact. There have been 6 oligarchs and their families who've been killed. Most of them were killed in their homes. Somebody went in and just executed them.
Yeah. Wow.
And these must have been people that Putin saw as a threat. So he had them wiped out. And not just the oligarchs, their families. Some of them were, sons and daughters, kids growing up with probably no political involvement whatsoever, but their father happened to be an oligarch.
Yeah, that's the way the mob used to operate.
Yeah.
The mob used to
Covering
wipe
all
out
their
entire
bases.
families.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Making
this is
sure
what
there's no
makes
one
it
with a
makes
revenge
it
story.
scary about Russia. And when you think about that kind of government, and then you think about the threat on democracy. Getting back to what we're here trying to discuss, in the book, and the threat of preserving democracy.
Yeah.
And not.
All right. So, Philip, what was the biggest surprise that you found when you started gathering evidence for the book? What was the thing that surprised you the most?
I think that what surprised me was that I started going in directions perhaps that I hadn't originally envisioned. I had no intention of writing about fact-checking services and website credibility evaluation services, which I spent a whole chapter covering. And some of the feedback that I've gotten, that was a lot of people have said that was the best chapter in the book. And I talk about companies. There's a company called NewsGuard, and NewsGuard right now, what they do is they evaluate the credibility of websites, and they give everybody either a red or a green badge. They have to meet certain journalistic standards, and I don't really like the binary nature of it. To me, there's more to evaluating a website other than whether they get a red badge or a green badge, right? Sure. And they do an analysis that goes into a lot of depth with it. But it's the beginning of a whole change with the internet, which is that companies like NewsGuard, and there's many others that are in existence today, they're beginning to have an impact on the way companies and advertisers are spending their money on the internet. So you're beginning to see, and we're only at the beginning of this, but companies are beginning to say, hey, if you're Pfizer, or you're some major company and you're spending, say, $50 or $100 million on one product to advertise it across the internet, your money goes to a lot of places that you're not even aware of, right? Because you enlist the help of a media buyer. That media buyer goes out and they use keywords mainly and other analytics to buy space on the internet. But what's happened is, in many cases, those analytics and keywords are buying or purchasing, marketing time on those sites or banners on those sites of disinformation websites. And there was a study done by Stanford University that's mentioned in the book, where Stanford took a look at one of the trends that's happening right now, and companies that are beginning to follow this and steer clear of the disinformation sites, they're getting better returns on their investment, better per click follow through rates on their media buys. And so I think that's going to be a trend that's going to take root, where companies are going to say, hey, you know what? We're no longer just going to give our media buying companies $50 million and spend it wherever, the analytics indicate we're going to get return. We want to steer clear of sites that are perpetuating false information. Because it's in their best interest. They'll still sell more product that way, but now they also won't be supporting the continued deterioration of truth on the internet.
Oh boy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No, but look at where we are with that, right? I mean, think about Alex Jones right now, the situation with that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the biggest purveyor of fake news, Fox News.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well, sure. Yeah, although Alex Jones, I think he's sort of the grand poobah of false news, because he's the one who, in the middle of the attack on the World Trade Center, went on the air. And this seems unbelievable, but if you go back on the internet and research it, you'll find it's true. He went on the air before the second building had even collapsed and was already claiming it was a government conspiracy.
Oh my God.
So can you imagine how obsessed you have to be and self-interested to do that in the middle of a national tragedy? The buildings hadn't even fallen yet. And Alex Jones saw it as an opportunity to promote his crazy brand and then say, it's all a government conspiracy. The federal government played a role in this, and they killed their own civilians, all based on some pretext that we were going to go after oil in the Middle East.
Go ahead.
He's a business guy like anybody else, I guess, right? He's just trying to make a buck by selling his product, which is in this case like Trump himself. So he's just trying to get paid like everybody else, I guess. He's an asshole.
But how pathetic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he gets paid a lot for spreading the false information about the poor families that lost kids in Sandy Hook. Yes, people do buy it. That's
so unfortunate.
I often wonder if he actually believes it, or if he's just acting.
It could go either way, and it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
True. Well, it's the same way with Trump. He's lived his life so much around the lies. He does know there's a part of his brain that realizes it's completely fabricated, but he doesn't care enough.
Sure.
He spent his whole life telling lies, so it just becomes all about perpetuating the lie.
Yeah, and at a certain point, maybe reality blends and you become the lies and you don't even realize it. It could be that too, but it doesn't matter because it works, right? They get people, they get attention, and that's what they're after.
Yeah, but that whole concept of fake news, look where it's led us. Phil bringing up about the websites that have disinformation. Mm-hmm. We have so much of that now. There's so much disinformation out there, and then you mentioned about companies that legitimately are putting budgets into marketing, mm-hmm. not intentionally to go to those kind of things. But what about some of the rich people in this country who want that to happen? You know what I'm saying? Like the pillow guy, you know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Well, that, in the long run, that's the kind of thing where over time, hopefully all these, information, evaluating kinds of companies will have greater and greater impact, because the other part of the book that I think is really, if I were looking at it from a news perspective, and I would say, here's your news in the book, is that I feel that the whole evolution in artificial intelligence and machine learning is eventually going to affect the way news is delivered. Because think about this, right? And I use this metaphor in the book. When you watch a baseball game today, it's virtually unrecognizable from the way it was broadcast 15 or 20 years ago. Now they talk about launch angle. They talk about pitcher spin rates, right? All that stuff is artificial intelligence, which a lot of people don't understand what artificial intelligence is. It's, metrics that are set up by devising algorithms, in a software program. So it's all done by human beings, right? And the whole purpose of it is to generate data, in the case of baseball, that, is going to help managers and players to make better decisions about how to approach, say, a pitcher, let's say, that they're going to be going up against, right? But here's the tie-in to the media. You could have broadcasts where somebody has to design the software, but it looks at fact-oriented databases and historical databases. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take those databases and we're going to apply it to this newscast. And then when you have a Tucker Carlson or some other, perpetuator of lies on Fox, like Laura Ingraham, that, when they say something that's factually untrue, that's going to affect their score. Every journalist is going to have a score in terms of truthfulness and adherence to facts. And if that technology were applied to the news media, Fox would score abysmally bad.
I love it.
And people would turn
It's
into
like a
the
real-time
news.
lie detector.
Yeah, and you know how
Wow.
when you tune into a baseball game and you see a new player come up to the plate, say it's Bryce Harper, right, and you see his average, his home runs, and his
Sure.
RBIs. What would it be like if we turned on the news and we saw, say, Anderson Cooper's truthfulness rating, his exaggeration rating, so on and so forth, right? And it can all be done. That's the thing. The technology exists to do it. And I think it'll revolutionize media. It's just a matter of time. And the only difficulty and the inherent difficulty is that you need sort of a bipartisan panel of historians who are willing to sort of say, put aside, whatever partisan viewpoints they may have and say, this is a fact and this isn't. They have to determine, and you would do this for an encyclopedic kind of database of history and say, well, yes, it's true. The Nazis really had concentration camps. That's a fact, and there are some crazy, nutty historians out there who would try to deny it. Right. But we all know it's a historical fact. And that would be just one of many examples of things that are factually true. So.
Well, speaking of AI and technology, I have a question relating to your book and
yeah.
Would you say, all of you guys, kind of lay this out to everybody? I mean, do we all kind of feel that technology-wise, is our voting system functioning correctly? Is it broken?
I don't think it's optimal. No,
I don't think it's broken. I think it's all been something that the public has been sort of beaten. It's been beaten into people's heads. There's something wrong with it, and frankly, it's not true. It's not true. Could there be improvement? Sure, but the voting system in this country is really accurate to an amazing degree.
I think all the states should adopt the exact same method for counting votes instead of having certain states do paper ballots, certain states do this, and I think it needs to be kept totally off of the internet so it cannot be hacked. So it needs to be, it needs to be grounded so that nobody can get to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then it's guaranteed to be safe and nobody playing with it.
I'm curious, Tyler, because you're a young person and you're saying that you don't think our voter system is fully accurate. Why do you feel that way? Oh,
yeah, no, because not everyone is accounted for, and not everyone is taught how to be accounted for. I don't think that. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest threat to democracy is? Right, you wrote a book about it. What do you think is the biggest threat that we have in the country right now to our democracy, our voice of being able to say what we feel about something?
Well, it's propaganda, and frankly, it's a lack of education among people, because people today, frankly, a lot of them have trouble differentiating all the information that gets thrown at them, and then saying, "Oh, you know what? That's BS." But this is educated. This is factual. This is researched, right? And the average person today has lost that ability to differentiate it. It's a tragedy, because people, I've seen it happen, right? You'll find people that are otherwise intelligent, and they're all of a sudden disseminating information that they read on Facebook, and that particular information has no credibility whatsoever.
That is very true. Yeah, that does happen.
But the threat to democracy is not our system of elections. That is not. I mean, the system of elections has always been pretty strong and solid. You know what the problem is that the people who've run the elections in the United States at both the state and federal level have failed to educate the public the degree to which there's rigor and meticulousness about the vote. And I believe that meticulousness exists. I believe the people who run it currently do have that integrity. And I think our voting system is accurate. And that's why, every time they audit the results, it turns out to just further and further reinforce the fact that Biden won the election.
Right. That's true. Yeah.
I agree to an extent. I feel like if anything, maybe this idea that you're saying of educating should be combined with what I said before about putting it right in my face. That's what I think. I think that
Yeah.
I think, and this just might be here. This is a fresh 20-something-year-old perspective on what I think is going on. I think that rich people have a lot more have a lot more influence over politicians and government than we kind of think
True.
they do. I think that money talks. Okay, it's power,
Sure.
and the people with money in this country, they're the ones that get the final say. You can't tell me anything otherwise. Like, there's no way that Jeff Bezos couldn't, for any reason, go buy a politician and say, okay, say this, this, and that, because this is what I believe. And I want you to go blab that out to everybody for me. Thanks. And that guy's, yeah, all the time. Right?
It happens daily. It's happening right now.
And there's no way that politician's going to be like, no, I want to put my ideas out. He's getting paid. This is his livelihood. There's no way that he's not gonna. You're not gonna be a politician if you go out there and you try and just push your own ideas with no funding. Right? Funding is the key word there, because where does that funding come from? It's literally people with the money, and the people with the money are the rich people that own businesses, unfortunately. So I don't even think that we give politicians all this credit, but I think they're just glorified actors, to be honest. I think that they're really good at speaking publicly, going in front of cameras, knowing what to say in an instant and make it look good. And I think that behind the scenes, there's somebody else really talking. It's not their words that they're saying. It's not their own words. They're saying someone else's words.
Yeah.
So,
well, a lot of the time they have aides who are, drafting speeches, drafting message points,
right.
drafting
and that's very public knowledge.
Q&As. Yeah.
And we all know that,
But I don't, I tend to disagree with you on one aspect. I think most of them are bumbling fools. And I don't think there's that many that are really all that impressive in terms of the way they present themselves. And you sort of look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, right?
They could have an agenda, though.
Well, that's what that was to me the first like bad whiff that I got, and I was like, whoa, what is that smell over there? Let me check this out. It was very obvious about how bad some of these people are at like trying not to be obvious about things.
Yeah.
I wish there, from my point of view as a young person in 2023 we're about to be going into, I feel like there's got to be a much more effective way for me to feel like, I'm accounted for. I would love, I'm going to start a sentence. Okay. I saw a TikTok the other day, which is how every credible sentence starts, by the way. I saw a TikTok the other day and it's this guy, and he comes on and he says, hey, I think we're doing Congress wrong. Why do we have politicians and this and that? We can have a really good app that lets us look at all these issues and topics that we can vote on right there on our phone, and we've got facial authentication. We've got all this crazy technology that can let us identify who we are, make it credible. You type in your social number and you hit send, you could sit on your couch and do that if you wanted to, if you were bored one night, you know? And I just feel like that is a really effective method for getting my opinions out there at any point in time. We have instant communication right now, crazy technology that lets us talk to anyone, anywhere, instantly. The problem with voting in the past was bandwidth, right? It was the rate at which we could get all these votes spoken for, everybody's opinion accounted for. And so our solution to that in the past was, okay, well, let's have two people from each state come forward and say the majority of people's opinions, right?
Yeah.
But we don't need that anymore, do we? You can put your opinion out there about a video. Why not about a law? Why not that easy? Why shouldn't it be that easy? I just feel like, yes, education, huge problem. A lot of kids don't give a shit. They don't care. They don't want to go out and learn. They don't want to put their phone down. So, you have to literally put it on the phone. You have to be like, all right, here it is, go learn about it, make it easy to learn about, and make it easy for them to engage.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's get back to the book. I want to hear about what states we have to watch out for. What eight states that we have a problem
Well,
with?
there were the big seven, which
Big
I
seven,
did add
okay.
Texas as an eighth, but the 7 states where the real conspiracy occurred were the battleground states that you keep hearing about, which is Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and New Mexico.
Yeah,
And what happened?
Those are most of those states that are like those swing states, aren't they? A lot of those too.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them,
New Mexico and Nevada, probably not as much, but all of the others certainly now. And Georgia, which used to be a solid red state, now is progressively becoming more of a purple state, so to speak.
Yeah.
But what happened is, and this is the thing that most Fox viewers don't even know, because it's been so minimally covered, if at all, on Fox, which is that the real conspiracy wasn't January 6th. That was just the most dramatic part of it. The real conspiracy began long before that and occurred at a state-by-state level, that after Trump lost the election, there were fake electors that basically Republicans who signed documents in states that Trump lost, those 7 states that I just named, and they signed a document saying that they were the valid, legitimate electors for their state, say in the case of Michigan, right? And these documents were signed. They had a forged signature of the Secretary of State and the governor on them. And we all know it was forged because the governor of Michigan would never have signed. It's illegal. Yeah, it's a felony, major felony. Wow. And Dana Nessum in Michigan, who's the state attorney general, she has investigated it. She has turned over her findings to the Department of Justice. And, everybody wonders, well, is Merrick Garland going to indict Trump? But there's also the question of, is he going to indict all of these fake electors from these 7 states who knowingly signed their names to a document with the false and fraudulent claim that Donald Trump was the true presidential candidate that their state had voted to elect by a majority vote? And in all 7 states, Trump lost. And no matter how passionate they were about their advocacy of Donald Trump, they should have realized there was no basis to sign such a document. So that's where the real crime occurred. And those were the slates of electors that all the protesters on January 6th, the mob that showed up at the Capitol, they wanted Pence to certify those electors as the real electors and then announce that Donald Trump had been reelected president. And of course, Pence, to his credit, because we never saw him stand up to Trump in all the time that he was vice president, but he refused to buckle on. Yeah. At one point, there was actually a driver that showed up and told Pence and his staff to get in the car, that they were going to take them to a safe place. And Pence, who was hiding out in some garage that was underneath all the Capitol buildings, said, "I'm not going anywhere." And when you think about it, you have to give him credit. Like if Pence, goes down in history and gets credit for anything, it will be the fact that he didn't set foot in that car. Because had he set foot in the car, they could have taken him anywhere. And they probably would have taken him outside the Capitol. And then the vote would never have been certified. And who knows what happens to him? Maybe they take him to a place where, some of the crazy mobs that showed up, they work him over and, dispose of the body. I mean, anything could have happened, but Pence
refused. If that was never certified, what happens then, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. So Pence, he did do the right thing, and it's a funny thing, too, because even Dan Quayle became sort of a heroic figure in all this, because Pence was calling around in the weeks when Trump was pressuring him, because Trump kept saying, you got to come through for me, buddy. You got to do the right thing, right?
I remember that.
Yeah, and Pence called Dan Quayle, and Dan Quayle said, Mike, you don't have a choice. This is not your call. Your function is strictly ministerial. You don't have any right to make any, Trump lost the election. Just do your job and certify Biden as the winner. So even Quayle played a heroic role.
There's been
in all
some
this.
kind of bipartisan committee that's been trying to work on some of that stuff, right? To kind of maybe it has something to do with the certification, but
Yes,
there is, right?
Yeah, I think they're working on that. Something that would prevent somebody from just being able to substitute their own electors, because
Making it clearer, is that what they're trying to do? Make
Yeah.
the law is clearer.
yeah, because one of the fears right now with the crazy Supreme Court we have today, although thank goodness today they did the right thing. They refused to grant Trump cert for this whole case involving the federal documents that he had down at Mar-a-Lago. The Supreme Court refused to hear the case. So basically, Trump has exhausted his last card, so to speak.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Right.
But everyone has feared that the Supreme Court would basically uphold state rights to, let's say, have legislators vote and say, in Michigan, we feel there was a lot of fraud this year. So what? Biden won. That was all manufactured. Whoever ran, and it could be DeSantis, right? Whoever runs on the Republican side. That what if one of these Republican legislatures said, we're going to vote and we're going to overturn the will of the people because we feel there was voter fraud and we feel that the rightful winner is Ron DeSantis. Then you have sort of a legalized coup that's occurring. It's scary.
Oh. Yeah.
Truly scary.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't like that we have a Supreme Court. Am I the only one that we have, what do we have? Like 9 people? How many are
9
in them?
people.
9?
Yeah.
Tyler,
9.
don't you agree with me or no? Right? I know.
I think that, I don't know, the systems in place, they're important, especially because right
But
now
they're
I feel like
compromised.
they are compromised. But if you just pull something out of the mix right now, you're going to collapse the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? It's a Jenga tower. It needs to be rebuilt from the bottom, unfortunately. But I think that, it is compromised, especially because these terms they're like monarchies, basically.
Mhm.
It's like you're allowed to just be king forever. That's it. That's
Oh yeah,
No
especially
ethical.
with the Supreme Court, right? That's a life position, right? Isn't it?
Life
yeah.
position,
Yes.
and there
That's
are no
amazing.
ethical
Yeah.
requirements.
There's no
Well,
life
my
position
biggest-
anywhere
my
except
biggest-
queen.
Yeah.
Well, my biggest gripe is some of these appointees bringing in religious doctrine and using that to make laws.
I
And
mean,
I have
that's
a real
just not
problem with
fair.
that.
That's not fair. That's not fair.
Yeah.
No, I have a
Well,
real problem with that.
this whole myth that the United States is a Christian nation, we never have been. It's such a
Tell the
false-
Christians that, Phil.
I know.
Tell the
but-
Christians that.
But it's the reality. It's a historical
Right.
fact, that our founding fathers wanted separation of church and state. It's the founding bedrock principle. And yet,
Yep.
you have
Right.
candidates today saying, I'm not afraid to be called a Christian nationalist, and right then and there, I'm like, well, you're a wacko, because
Right.
I mean,
that should have
right.
nothing to do with what you're saying, right? Exactly.
Yeah. I always loved the Ron Reagan commercial, the Ron Reagan Jr., where he said, I'm an atheist and I'm not afraid to burn in hell for it, and like I personally believe in God, but I've never been big on organized religion, and there's
Sure.
been more harm done through people using religion as a tool, unfortunately, to support their political agenda, and it's
Well said.
it's a real shame.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you say we take a break? I have an idea
Yeah.
when we come back.
Okay.
Sure.
We'll
Sure.
take a
Take a
short
How
break.
long? How long do you
Um,
break?
Oh,
You guys
Just a couple
tell me.
hours.
Yeah, a couple hours.
no, just a few. Yeah, we're
See
going to play
you midnight.
Canasta.
All right.
We're
We
gonna
will take a
minutes.
break. We
Let's
will take
take
a
a
short
break.
break and we'll be right back after this. This is Bill, and you're listening to Pull Yourself to Pieces, the podcast, hosted on Anchor. You never heard of Anchor? Anchor by Spotify is a podcast host platform, and it's an easy way to make a podcast. We picked Anchor because they have everything we needed all in one place. You can record and edit a podcast from your computer or even right from your phone. Then you can have your podcast distributed easily to multiple platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and much more. And did I mention it's free? That's right. Anchor is free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Welcome back to Pull Yourself to Pieces, the podcast. And we're here tonight with our special guest author, Philip Gimson, who wrote a book called Stop Pretending America. And it's basically about how fragile our voting system could be and the shenanigans that have been going on, and how somebody, an ex-president, has been proposed, just the big lie. And it's a fascinating book, and Phil's with us, and he's going to tell us a little bit more about how the media plays a role in all this. The stage is yours, Phil.
Yeah, well, I have a couple chapters on the media, and of course, a lot of it is focused on Fox. I'll say, because Fox is just so embarrassingly bad,
Sure.
and it's gotten to a point which, and I don't know how much of the public knows this because they probably don't talk about it on Fox, but we hear a lot about it on CNN and MSNBC, which is that broadcasts, particularly Tucker Carlson's show, are routinely replayed by the Kremlin in Russia because of the fact that Tucker Carlson is a sympathizer to Russia and essentially supports the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And he softened that stance a little bit due to somewhat of a backlash. But in the beginning, Tucker Carlson was like, why is it un-American to be pro-Russia and anti-Ukraine? And there's a simple answer to that. But the real point of what I say, which is a reflection of how bad Fox is that Tucker Carlson promoted Kremlin propaganda, which basically used the false pretext. Not only everyone is familiar with the claim by Putin that Ukraine is ridden with Nazis and that he's looking to clean it. But the other pretext, which is false and which Fox has talked about repeatedly, particularly Carlson, is that Ukraine is developing bioterrorism agents in labs across the country, and that Russia attacked Ukraine partially to get rid of the Nazis, right, which is false. But the other part is to prevent the threat of these bioterrorism agents from being used against the Russian population. There is no proof, no corroboration. And Tucker Carlson has talked about this repeatedly on his show. And the saddest thing about Fox is that they say things like this and you never get an apology. You never get anybody saying, well, here's the facts, right? And Laura Ingraham is famous for saying that on January 6th, there were Antifa supporters that were sprinkled in the mob. They were sprinkled. And what that means, I don't know how you sprinkle human beings, but she's essentially trying to plant the thought that Antifa egged these people on to attack the Capitol. And yet all of the people that have been charged and many convicted in the the January 6th riots, they're all right-wing extremists. They're all MAGA supporters, right?
Yep.
But you never get an apology, right? So that's what I address, and I put the blame on Rupert Murdoch and his son Lachlan.
Yep.
Like, how many more billions do you need to make? Like, don't you want to have a little integrity? Do you want to be associated with the destruction of American democracy? Is that so worth it to you, that money's so important to you, you're willing to destroy American democracy? And that's what I ask Rupert Murdoch. Are you willing to do that? I have letters in the book to Rupert Murdoch and his son Lachlan, but I don't spare CNN and MSNBC in this because, MSNBC is famous for introducing people as friend of the show. And what they don't realize is every time they do that, when they have a friend on the left and they introduce him as friend of the show, the people on the other side who might give MSNBC a listen that night? Now all of a sudden their back is up. What do they mean, friend of the show?
Right.
If I were on that show, they wouldn't introduce me as a friend, right? That's what right-wing people think. Right.
Right.
So that's MSNBC. Happens all the time. I tuned on after I wrote the book, just before I was doing finishing touches. I tuned into Nicole Wallace's show. She's one of the best hosts on television. But when she interviewed the Attorney General of the state of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, she introduced him as my friend, Josh Shapiro. Now, would you introduce Pat Cipollone, the former chief counsel for the White House in the Trump administration, as my friend? I guarantee you Nicole Wallace wouldn't introduce Pat Cipollone. And that's my point. That's precisely my point. It's basic unfairness that every news producer who even graduated Journalism 101 knows is inappropriate and it needs to be cleaned up. Same with CNN when Chris Cuomo used to interview his brother. Well, that's totally inappropriate. I went to journalism school. We learned that in week 1. If you have a conflict of interest, you're not allowed to do the interview. Even if you're told to do the interview, you're supposed to object and say, I can't do this interview. Andrew Cuomo is my brother, and he's the governor of the state of New York. It's going to destroy CNN's credibility. And it did in the minds of many on the right. So you see, a lot of these problems are so easily solvable. You just need to return to basic journalism standards.
Yeah.
So I take no prisoners in the book. I try to not just make it a book that the left would support. I do, lean to the left, right? Sure. But I have something in it for everybody. And the book is dedicated to as many good Republicans as it is to Democrats. And good Republicans are people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, and Brad Raffensperger in Georgia. There are some good Republicans. There, unfortunately,
I think the late John McCain was a good Republican.
John McCain was a good Republican.
He was a stand-up guy. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that's what I say about the media. And what I ask people to do, I use the metaphor of guppy fish. Don't be a guppy fish and just suck down whatever plankton is on the surface of the water. That's your average American watching the news. Is they just they swim up to the surface, they eat whatever is on the surface of the water, and they don't question it. It's your responsibility as a citizen to start having a brain and thinking, and not just buying into what you watch on the news.
Yeah,
well said.
You got to dig.
Tyler, do you watch any of the mainstream news?
No. No.
Neither do I. Well, I don't have television, so I couldn't watch the news if I wanted to. I get everything off the internet.
I used to. I really kind of I go onto the news sites that I have on my phone, which are mainly are NPR and AP, because I find that there's so much bias. It's hard to get straight news.
Yeah.
Like Phil said, it never used to be that way, right? I mean, you're a former journalist, right? So
yes.
And how long has it been since you were a journalist? It's been
forever. I was let's see, I left journalism in 1986.
Oh, okay.
I want to say.
Okay.
Then I was in government press relations for a while. Then I went on to Madison Avenue in public relations, and then real estate, and then finally recruiting.
I only asked because I thought maybe it was more recent, like if that was one of your reasons why you left journalism, because it has changed. Gotcha.
No.
But you've seen how long would you say we've seen this change where, give that look when you're listening to to news on the mainstream about
Man, I think it's really been such a phenomenon with the internet because And there are good things about it. Like we've seen the rise of all these very well done newsletters like, Politico and Axios, right? And so like Jonathan Swan, I talk about in the book, he's probably one of the best journalists alive today. And he doesn't work for a major network. He works for Axios, right? Right. And so there have been good things about it. But I think what's happened with the internet is that the media, almost like the NFL with star quarterbacks, where there's such an emphasis on the star, right? So there are even good people who've worked for Fox, like
Okay.
Shep Smith, right, who left, and
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Brett Baer, who's still there, who's
Yep.
halfway decent. But unfortunately, the ones who get the lion's share of the attention are the ones who go for the jugular. Tucker.
And they get the ratings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sean Hannity,
Right.
Laura Ingraham.
Right.
And Laura Ingraham is great at snideness. Like it doesn't matter what the January 6th committee does. She'll be on the air later that evening with a snide look on her face, making fun of it all, right?
Yeah.
And the viewers at Fox, they just fall right, she's blonde, she's
I know
attractive.
some of them.
Yeah.
It's a TV show, and there's a target audience.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
but
it is.
that audience is really not that big. If you look at the demographics, it's only a few million people that tune into these shows at any given time.
Yeah.
It's not
Mhm.
50 million or 80 million that tune into Tucker Carlson. It's in
No.
the low millions, very low.
Yeah.
So
What's low?
like 3 to 5 million people in a
Yeah.
country of over 300.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's important to realize that there's really not that many people tuning in to this
Yeah,
propaganda.
but what kind of
Yeah.
number of people though makes a difference?
It's a good
I-
question.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
great question, actually.
I'd say close to 40%
40%.
would make
Well-
a big difference.
Yeah, let's think about where we stand right now with who's believing things, right? I mean, I don't know the numbers or statistics, or anything like that, but you still got
I
a lot of
think-
Trump supporters.
I
right?
think the low intelligent are believing a lot of
Mhm.
things.
Hmm.
They're easily swayed. You could talk them into anything.
You always say that to me. We've had this discussion before. No, but seriously,
I believe it.
no, but
I-
it's funny, but it's like we've had this discussion before about. I have said to you that I know a lot of very intelligent people. Granted, they're more like they're book smart, very intelligent
Mhm.
people who are very pro-Trump,
Take
and
two.
I never understand it.
Trademark.
Right. Yeah.
My brother is a member of a very prestigious country club down in Florida.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not far from where Trump lives. It's within 10 miles radius
Mhm.
of Trump. And my brother knows some very well-educated, successful people, and they're big Trump supporters. And
Yeah.
and my brother, he's like one of those, everybody would assume that he's just like them, and he's to the left of me.
Yeah.
He's really far left.
Oh.
And but I always say to him, I say, how can they be so smart and successful and be
It's
Trump
not-
supporters?
There's two different kinds of intelligence, right? I mean, there's intellectual intelligence, okay, and then there's emotional intelligence. That's the
Right.
difference,
Right.
And we don't educate on emotional intelligence. It's just not even a thing,
Right.
Like
Yeah.
a computer is technically smart, okay, but is it going to be able to make a right or wrong decision? No, it's not there
No.
yet, And if we don't teach people how to do that, what is majority right? What is majority wrong? Why is majority important? Then how are we going to make progress with that? How are we going
Are
to
we
expect
hopeless,
people?
guys? Are we? Is our democracy doomed? I
No,
mean,
no.
I don't
no.
think people
And
are
that-
doomed. So yeah, I don't think democracy is doomed.
I think we're headed towards Idiocracy, the film. I think we're headed there.
I hope
I
not.
think we're
That's
close.
funny, but it's
I
scary.
think
Yeah.
We're close.
Yeah, we are close. We're just
We're
about
close.
there now.
I'm
So-
worried.
Well, did you know that for the first time in United States history, since they've been tracking all this, there was some organization that rates what type of government you have. And last year, the United States was classified as what they call an anocracy, which is part autocracy, part democracy, but it's no longer purely a democracy. And which is fascinating because I use the example in the book, and this is where you have trouble separating fact from opinion or whatever, but 3 journalists could be asked the same question. All could be said to be telling the truth, and yet all 3 would give different answers, which is you could ask 3 journalists, well, is the United States a democracy, right? One journalist would say yes. Okay, he's not lying. Another would say no, it's an anocracy. And he would be right based on these international standards. And a third could say, no, we've become an autocracy. And, there are a fair number of political observers who would say that the third person's also correct. So you sort of wonder, it's difficult,
Okay.
to determine what's fact and what isn't when it comes to our government.
Well, I think once dark money is possibly taken out of the mix and Citizens United is disbanded and taken out of the mix, and we lose the electoral college and every vote counts, and one person, one vote, I think when that finally happens, maybe then we'd finally be in a true democracy.
Yeah.
And I think I think those three things have to happen
I'd
for
like
that.
to see the electoral college gone.
Yeah.
Tyler, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I feel like I kind of touched on that a little bit before. I think that we're at an age now where we are capable of accounting for everybody's opinion. I think we should find a better way to do that. You know?
Yeah. So,
No doubt.
Phil, tell us where we can find your book.
Yeah.
Where can we find your book?
So you can go on to Amazon.com, and that's one way to get it. You can go on to Goodreads. I'm still trying to get on to Barnes & Noble. There's a little bit of a holdup there, but hopefully in the next week or so, I'll be on Barnes & Noble. But my understanding is you can get on the book from Google Books and Yahoo Books, but Amazon's probably the easiest. And I also have a website called StopPretendingAmerica.com. So people can go on there and read a little bit, and then they can, email or leave their information, and I can get back to them about, getting the book. But, I don't yet know whether it's going to become a book that is offered retail in, say, Barnes & Noble stores. We're not there yet, but hopefully in the long run we will be.
Yeah, we have hope.
Yeah.
All
right.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
At this point, Bill and I are going to do another version of Looney Laws of the Land, and we're going to invite everybody in the studio to stay and play along and listen up.
Mm-hmm.
And let's get right into that. What do you say, Bill?
Sure.
Okay, we could do that.
All right. Are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right.
All right.
Whenever you're ready.
It's time for Looney Laws of the Land.
Everybody, we are going to do another edition of Looney Laws of the Land, where we pick a state, and we're going to Louisiana.
And these are laws that are still on the books in Louisiana, correct?
That's what I read. That's what you read. That's what it says here.
Did you read that on the internet? How do you know it's true?
I read it on
How
the
do you know it's
machine.
true?
That's right.
I read it on
All right,
that thing, Goggle.
Goggle. All right.
Goggle.
Goggle. All right. Yeah.
Listen, a couple of vowels there.
G-O-G-L-E, huh?
Okay.
G-O-G-L-E. All
Apparently,
right.
guys.
Yes, in Louisiana, Bill.
it's illegal to lie.
What?
This is what I'm saying. It's right here. It's
So
also
where's the rest of
illegal
the sentence?
It's also illegal to make a promise and not keep it.
Really? Well, that's going to put a lot of men in jeopardy, I'll tell you right now.
I feel like if we were in Louisiana and you were telling me this right now, you would probably go to jail. So
yeah. It's illegal to lie. Wow. That's not even a commandment, and it's a law in Louisiana. You can't lie.
This can't be still,
Says who?
I don't know.
All right, next one.
All right. I know this says minors, so Tyler, you're a little bit older than that now. Minors cannot play coin-operated foosball unless they're accompanied by an adult.
Really?
It's a
foosball. What is it, addictive?
I wonder if it's the putting the money in the machine aspect of it. I don't know.
All right.
Oh, boy.
Oh, you guys will like this one. All right. This has to be real. Okay. If you're going to feed your hogs some garbage in Louisiana, you have to cook it first.
Well, that's just practical. I mean, it's got to taste good, right? You know.
Right.
Well, define garbage. I mean, that's a
thought
pretty
you were gonna
broad
say
statement, Bill.
that the law required you put hot sauce on it or something like that.
Not the worst law. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie. That's
Yeah, not
right,
the worst.
right.
let's keep that one. Actually,
Yeah,
let's
all
let's
right.
keep that.
Cook the
It's
garbage.
beautiful.
All right, go
All right,
on.
this one's dangerous. Apparently, it is expressly illegal to steal a person's alligator. You got
Honestly,
a lot of guts.
anyone that can pull that off, they should be able to get away with
Deserves-
it.
Yes.
I just think.
Deserves the
They
alligator.
All right.
Wait, hold it. So you're telling me that in Louisiana people have alligators as pets because that's the only way that this happened? Because you know, at some point somebody stole somebody else's alligator, or it wouldn't be a law, right? Think about it.
Yeah.
Are there papers for owning an alligator? Like, how does that work? How is that your property?
No, you're right. Right.
If it's
I
just
don't
on
know.
your territory,
Is that an exotic animal, like like a iguana type of thing?
It's not an endangered. Well, it's protected because in Florida you can't kill them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, that's big in Florida. If you kill an alligator, you're
What
in
if he
trouble,
goes?
so they're
What if
protected.
the alligator goes over the state line? Is it?
Then it's open season. You can blow them away. So you realize there's like 1,000 hunters on the Georgia state line with guns just waiting for an alligator to cross.
Come on,
They just
Rudy.
stand there. They're over there in the they're in the service station off of 95 just waiting.
Okay, so in Sulphur, Sulphur, Sulphur,
right.
Louisiana, it is illegal, Ray,
Yes.
to make a phone call and use any profane or indecent language.
Ray?
No shit. No shit.
Right, Ray? Isn't that right?
Yeah, he always says Ray as if I do it.
Like you
yeah,
did it.
Like
I love
I
that.
did it. Well, don't you need a third party at this point to listen to the conversation and say, okay, you made a profanity, you're going to jail? I mean, two people can't have a conversation and one can't use it. It's against the law.
Hey,
Isn't that like a free speech violation? I mean, there's got to be a way. I'm sure the ACLU would love to fight that one,
oh yeah.
right?
Has anybody been prosecuted under this?
Oh, I
Crazy.
guarantee somebody has. At some
Okay,
point.
so in Louisiana, you cannot shoot lasers at police officers. Well, yeah, that's a good law, no?
Well, first of all, we haven't figured out how to shoot lasers. Think about it.
They say shoot here, but I mean they're talking
Yeah,
about aim.
yeah. Aim a laser. Who has a laser? I mean, what do you go
I'm
to?
hoping it's a
Lasers?
laser pointer. It's not like a laser gun.
On
Right.
on a more serious note, though, I have seen clips and videos recently of I guess there are riots happening where
Right.
people are just in mass holding laser pointers and just shining them at the cops, and
Re-
trying to throw the police off so they can't see.
Wow.
It's pretty
All right, well,
intense, actually.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that one I see why they put that one in place. That one I get.
All right, so in New Orleans, any rider of a bicycle, tricycle, or other vehicle propelled by hand or foot must have at least one hand on the handlebars at all times. What if he's on a unicycle?
Technicality, Bill.
He's got a.
You're going right to jail.
All right, and in Louisiana, getting back to alligators, but no reptiles are allowed within 200 yards of a Mardi Gras parade. There
Okay.
must have been.
Who's getting arrested in this situation? The alligator? I'm not sure about this.
Who brought their alligator to the party? Yeah, and scared the hell out of all the revelers. Can you imagine you're in a crowd of 300 people, a giant throng, and you're drunk, and women are showing you their breasts, and all of a sudden you look down, there's an alligator.
And I got one last one. Okay, this is bizarre. In
Oh, like
Louisiana,
the other ones haven't been?
apparently in Louisiana, it's illegal to play a game. They don't specify what type. It's illegal to play a game on neutral ground unless the area is designated as a playground.
Huh.
Okay.
That's no fun.
Man. That's just
And
great.
there you have it. Louisiana, wacky laws.
I guess that's to keep people from trespassing. Think about it. That would be the only reason to have that law.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To keep people from trespassing, right.
So there you have it. Another loony laws of the land.
Unbelievable. Yep. Unbelievable. Yep.
One
Well,
of these days we'll get to New York. We haven't gotten to New York or Virginia yet, have we?
oh, that's gonna. Oh, I can't wait till we get to Virginia, my state. That's gonna be fun.
We haven't gotten to Phil's state. Phil, you're in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, yeah.
I have
Oh.
one that personally impacted me, which is a bizarre law,
Really?
which
Do
is
tell.
that in Pennsylvania, regardless of your age, when your second parent dies, state law requires that you go in and you file for orphan certification. This happened to me when I was in my 50s.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Because my mom passed, but when you think about it, right? What humiliation! Now my dad I lost in 2009, my mom in 2014, and after I lost my mother, I had to go in and file for orphan certification, which is so bizarre.
Absolutely.
And it's like $10 or $15. It was a small amount of
It's
money.
just to get money.
Yeah, it's just to get money. And I'm
Oh,
like,
my
what's
gosh.
the point of this? Like, what do I gain? Like, what is the point? But it is a state law. So I filed and I got my orphan certification.
Good thing, because probably
Oh
if you
my
don't do it, they
goodness.
send you to an orphanage.
Yeah, maybe. Which, when you're in your 50s, could be a real problem.
You don't have to sign up for this draft, but you better sign up to be an orphan.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Boy.
Well, guys,
Pennsylvania.
this has been a great.
wait.
Yeah, it's been
Hold
great.
on.
I'm sorry,
Hold
what?
on. I have something to say. I said I have my best friend is from Pennsylvania. He's from a little town called Tityute, which is an Indian
Really?
name. Yeah, have you ever heard of that
No.
town, Phil?
No.
Yeah,
No.
Tityute or Tityute, Pennsylvania. Yeah,
Wow.
and I thought that was a pretty interesting name for a town named after it's an Indian name. So
Wow.
an American
What
American
part of
Indian.
Pennsylvania?
I have no idea. I never asked him, but yeah, he has a bumper sticker with the name of the town he came from. So
Huh.
Yep.
Wow. It's wild.
I saw the Liberty Bell. Have you been to the Liberty Bell? Philip?
Yes. Yes.
And Betsy Ross's house
I have been. Yes.
and the Mint, because we took
Been
a
to the
trip
Mint, yep.
in high school, and we took a trip to Pennsylvania in high school, and we stopped at those three places.
That's mainly
And,
what, Philadelphia area? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All in
Very
Philly.
interesting.
Yep.
Very interesting. Betsy Ross's house, the ceilings are low, so you basically have to duck under doorways.
All right. So,
Great show,
Well,
everybody.
thanks. Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
yes.
Yep.
And
Thanks.
thanks for
Again,
having me
it's-
as a guest.
Yes.
Oh, it was our
absolutely.
pleasure, Philip. Thank you.
Welcome to
Thank
come
you
back
so
and
much.
talk
Yeah.
more about the book in the future. If
Yes,
Yeah,
anytime you
once again,
I'd
want.
for our
love to.
listeners, it's
I'd love
Stop
to.
Pretending America by Philip Gimson. We look forward to hearing good things about the book. It's only recently out, correct? I mean,
Yeah. It just came out in early August.
okay.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, so it's
Yeah.
it's just hit the
We're-
airwaves. All right,
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Month
Well,
number 3.
Well, lots of luck with it, Philip.
Yeah,
I
thank
hope
you very much.
I hope it does well because look, if it educates one person, then it was worth
Yep.
the write.
Exactly.
There
Exactly.
you go.
And Tyler, thank you
Yep.
for joining us
Yeah.
and giving your
Thank you,
perspective.
Tyler.
Of
Yes,
course.
Tyler.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Anytime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great.
We will be signing off now, and
And
we'll be doing our show. Probably, we have no plan for our next episode, so whatever it's going to be, you'll find out what it is. I
Don't
can't
make this
promote
the
it.
last, though.
can't
Don't
promote
make
it.
this the last. I don't want to be associated with bringing the show
the
to
end
a
oh
of it.
no,
close.
no, no! This is
And
far
now
from the last.
The end
Good.
is near. End it our way.
Yeah.
Be
Thanks,
good
guys.
All right.
Be good to each other out there.
Please check out our website, pullyourselftopieces.com.
That's right.
And you can subscribe to the show in Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Castbox, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Stitcher, and YouTube, or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode.
And if you enjoy our show, don't forget to give us a high rating.
And remember to tell your friends about the show.
Thanks for listening to our show, and thank you to freesounds.org and Gottlieb, Audio Mirage, Plastibrain, Cognito Perceptu, FK Prod, Mirage Hazer, Shadow Wisp, DBoss, Viku Seru, Intra Environmental Sound Project, Julian Nicholas, Carmelo Mike, G Kill Hour, 140178 Sound, CMU Sound Design, Alan M.G., Der Super Anton, Eric H. 2000, Bulbastray, FK Phantom, Ultra Dust, Ada Records, Stuart Colborn, Debroid, Cubadup, GJ, Syntax Seed, Inspector J, Astounded, Madge 061785, Just Invoke, Short Record, Lorenzo Sue, and I'm Mackenzie. CreativeCommons.org/licenses/by/3.0/legal code.